the Berbers.
Got it.
Oh, we're being recorded.
Welcome to Morocco by Linda Tatton.
Oh my, now the pressure's on. Um, okay, so actually all of it started like in 8,000 BC, which I kind of don't even know what that means, other than it was a very long time ago. And they had guards at the palace. This is Rabat is the capital city, so that's where the king lives. And there were guards and horses around.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, we believe you. Now you notice on the wall, the holes, some people used to think they were for guns or something, but actually it's so the wall will dry when they build it so that it's so large and sort of the stucco or the material will dry. But if you can kind of see some little black things towards the right, those are birds. So the birds go in and they all have little houses and where all the holes were put in for the drying.
Wow.
Now, this picture here on the right, you can see the brass, and as I said, everything just I thought was so carved and beautifully. But if you look a little to the right of that, it's sort of a white thing. That's a very modern building. So the contrast around some of these places were kind of amazing. You know, you're going back like this is the 12th century, and this is, 2023. Morocco, a lot of gardens around the palaces and just around, and very clean. There were people sweeping all the time. It's just a very clean place. I didn't really see litter, or anything around. And this was, where the palace is. And again, you can see all the detail work everywhere. Even the ceilings, I mean, there was nothing that was left that was not carved. Every little detail, and especially where the lights were, or in this, it was a window that was on top of the room, the mausoleum. And this was in the museum that was right off that. So it's a little bit shiny, but you can see the jewelry that the women particularly wore, and the bracelets. The Berber culture, they're sort of known for their jewelry, their silver jewelry. And these are the Messinas, that's the historic area of town, of the old section, and historic in most cases. And they're the streets with all the little shops, very colorful, very colorful. And again, you can see the street on the left of the alleyway, how clean it is. And then the doors, I mean, everything, as I said, seemed very artistic. And even above the middle door, you can see some like grading work and again, flowers around and nothing anywhere around. Then we went to a workshop, a ceramic workshop, and there were people working there so that you could kind of see them doing their trade. And then, of course, they have the big shop area where you can go and buy things. And on the right, those sort of things with the little tops, that's what they cook in. A lot of chicken. And then right now it's escaping me the name of the cooking, but you see those a lot. Now I put this picture in. We went to a winery after we left Rabat, and on our way out, so you can see all the wine glasses. Well, what's interesting is that Morocco is a Muslim country and they don't drink, or not supposed to drink. And the people who run the winery are French. There's a strong French influence. People speak French, and the food, you notice that there. But he was saying that he has a big winery, and they only export up to 20%. So you might want to wonder where the other 80% is going. And he said it's the same with beer and spirits. Very little is really exported. So there seems to be a lot of drinking behind doors going on in Morocco.
Hmm.
They you can buy it I mean, you can if you're a Muslim, you can't buy it by law, but tourists can buy it and other people can buy it, and even in grocery stores. And there was a grocery store in Rabat that was right near the hotel, and our guide told us that if we wanted to make sure we had something to drink for Casablanca, which our hotel was a dry hotel, it was the only one we stayed in, that, to buy something to have for your room. And in Casablanca, it was a Four Seasons hotel, and the reason it was dry was because of its location. It was too close to the mosque, and because it's sort of like a school zone, because where they were, you couldn't drink, but everywhere else we could. And as I said, there's at least 80% of wine and spirits that are still in Morocco. And then we went to Fez. You can see it's a walled area, and it's very impressive. There were a lot of things in that area. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but there's sort of the Medina, which is the old section, had had 9,000
Hi,
twisting.
how are you?
Son Anthony. It's gonna be cool in this Jetson.
Okay. Had 9,000 twisting alleyways. So we had guards with us, or we had our guide, and then there were people who guided us through this area, because if you got lost, I mean, I'd still be there, because as I said, the twists and the turns, and it's all shops, and some people live there, but it goes on and on. And again, in the tour, the places to see things were made, and just walking around is a bit closer, so you can kind of see some of the tile work and things, and again the sculptures and as you can see, especially on the right, I mean, there's not a spot that's not carved. And all the entrance ways, it's not just a plain door that you walk through. It has a design to it. And you can see on the floor, there's tiles. Now here's when we're looking at some of the things on the left. The man in the blue sitting down, he's got a hammer and he's making pots and pans. And he's, putting them into shape. And on the right was a light store, all kinds of different lights. And you can kind of get a sense on the left, and that wasn't even as crowded as it gets. And you're in these narrow little ways, and coming the other direction, all of a sudden, will be a donkey with a cart filled with supplies. So then you're kind of pushed up against the wall as the donkey goes by. They moved us through kind of fast, partly because it was such a crush of people behind you. It's almost like getting out of a sporting event with that many people going in one direction. And on the right, that was a woodworking store, a shop, and you can kind of see the different things that's in the shapes. And you can see them making the things when you went into some of these shops. And now this is the carpet center. And so they bring you in and they give you mint tea. Mint tea is you get from every place. And they just kept bringing out different carpets and putting them on top of each other to show what they were like. And you could go stand on them and you could touch them, and you could buy them. And the picture on the right is in that same place. And on the wall there, those are carpets. And you can kind of see through the door, there's more carpets. And they're on the walls as well as the floor. The beautiful carpets. And again, even the ceilings, the work and the lights and the sculptures and doorways. Now on the left, if you can see in sort of the middle, there's some white barrels and then there's some others. That's what they put dye in. I mean, this time of year, they didn't have the colors, but there's pictures that you can see that have bright blues and reds and greens. And that's what they do for the tannery. And then they take where they make your bags or coats or whatever. But because it's a tannery, when you go there, they give you a little mint leaf to hold against your nose because it really can smell kind of awful. And then again, on the right, when you come out of these places, it's a nice little garden or park area. They were all over. Then we went to the Roman city. And, this goes back to 285. I don't even know how to say, how to say those dates. So this was a sort of a strenuous day in that we walked a lot. It was about 88 degrees and there's really not a lot of shade, but it's quite well preserved. On the way there, we stopped on the road and there was for a rest stop and they were selling, sort of roadside shops. And this was the road. This is what it looked like going out. So now we're walking into where the ruins are. It's quite preserved and it was quite large too. I mean, but see some of the things are still standing. This is amazing. If you look like on the left, you get a sense of the floor and what's around it. So on the right, it's a clearer picture of one of the other floors. And you think about how far back we're going and look at how clear it is. I mean, if you buy something today, it's not going to last 10 years probably, but how well preserved everything was. And again, these are just some of the buildings around and still standing. The Romans, they seem to know what they were doing back then, as far as architecture and things. And you can see with the people, the size of these buildings. And how much some of it is still intact. The different levels of stones. Then the Jewish, we went over to the Jewish cemetery. What happened, they used to have 250,000 Jewish people who lived in Morocco. Then 1948, when Israel came into being, there was a real push from Israel sort of calling people home, saying, come, and my understanding there were incentives, financial incentives, come and let's build our community. And so going from 250,000, there's now I think 2,500. So, I mean, it's major. But even in some of the architecture and some of the sculptures that you saw before, you can see the Star of David, things that go back to the 11th century or 7th century, or, go quite, I believe, I'm trying to remember what the exact date when it all kind of started with the Jewish population coming in, but it was 250,000 people, and everybody kind of got along well until after the 40s. So this is the cemetery. And again, everything is so well preserved. This is sort of a smaller area, and then I went into the temple there. It was a small little area. But the influence is in the art in certain different places. Now, this is a palace that was sort of across the street. And again, the doors and every part of area has a carving or something on it. Now then here we're into another Messina and you're walking through. And how inviting all the food looks and the colors, a lot of spices. I thought it'd be a great place for a food group because the food was great, was wonderful. And it has a lot of different influences, from the French and from the Spanish, as well as, so many other countries, but how well everything is presented. And then on the left, selling different things in the shops. And the right, another doorway, and the decorations of the door, the different tiles on the floor. There were a lot of, we went to a lot of houses, riads and palaces that were inside the Messinas. So you'd be walking through and then we'd end up and we'd go either look at it or have lunch. Some of them had lunches there. This was a music museum. And they had other things in there. And again, if you look at the left and how many levels, it just keeps going up, and it's just, you could spend a lot of time in one place just looking at every little part. And on the right, you can see the floor, there were different things again. Because I think the colors around the door looked more to me like Christmas lights or something. It didn't seem to quite fit, but. And then we went to Casablanca. On the way to Casablanca, we saw the movie Casablanca, and then we went to Rick's Cafe, but not the real one, a recreation, and we had lunch there. Casablanca is a business center. It's large. I think probably the only reason, well, they can't take you to Morocco and not take you to Casablanca, but we really weren't there for very long. It was sort of in and out. We got there late one night. We went around and did some things in the day. Then one more night we were gone in the morning. But this is the only mosque that non-Muslims can go into and women can go into. And it's enormous. It accommodates 25,000 people inside and another 80,000 on the grounds. So this is outside of it. And then going, and you can kind of see that from the size of the people, how large everything is. And it just, sections of it. And there's a section where they kind of put women in a little bit of a different section. And our guide, who's Berber, he said it was more because of when they're doing their prayers, that prostrating themselves, and that wouldn't be flattering for women or modest for women to be doing that with men around. So they're kind of in a little different section. And in the basement, they had a whole area for bathing and washing, because that's very much part of the ritual, to be clean when you're doing the prayers. And he said if you had been intimate with somebody, then you have to take a shower. You have to really take a little bit more effort to get ready. And again, as I said, if you look on the left, you can see at the columns how tall the people are. I mean, it was just an amazing place. And also, oh, wait a minute, let me see if I can go back for a minute. Now that Susan taught me how to do this. I'm missing some pictures. Well, all right, on this one, if you kind of look at the top, the roof opens up. It's a retractable roof, which is, considering the size of it, was kind of interesting. And this was outside, just to kind of give you a sense. On the left, it was like the street with motorbikes and things. Casablanca, a lot of it's just not that pretty. But on the right, they have this well-known marketplace, and that's where the snake charmers are. And some of the people in the group actually held the snake. I, however, stood back and took pictures. I didn't have a need to touch it. And it's a large area. And again, very colorful. All the shops, again, very clean. And then we went on to Marrakesh, which is this incredible blue everywhere. And it was founded in the 11th century. And we went to a garden there. And Yves Saint Laurent has a museum. There's two, one in Paris and one in Marrakesh, where he lived for quite a while.
Linda, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why is it known as the Red City?
I just saw that earlier and wrote that in, and I don't know. I was going to look that up. Probably, I don't know. I'll get back to you on that, because I thought that was odd, and then I took an aspirin and I sat in my chair, and that I don't remember anything else. But because I thought that was an odd thing, and I don't know why. Whether it's, I don't think of the dirt as being particularly red or volcanic, like it is in Australia or even Hawaii. So I'll check on that because that was interesting.
Yeah, it's just everything is so blue.
Yes, and the sky, I mean, it was gorgeous. You know how in June we have that deep blue sky that's deeper than other times and it's no clouds. Every day, every single day was like that. Every single day with deep blue sky. So the colors with the buildings and the architecture and the colors, and I mean, just everywhere, it was just really
Well,
bright.
I just read that it's nicknamed the Red City because of the city walls and the red sandstone buildings.
Oh, okay. All right. And this is the garden, which I was surprised that it was a lot of cactus, but this was like you went into the museum and they had a little movie about, the design, his designs and his life. And then you walk around and they had some dresses and some clothes. And then outside were these gardens. So then sort of on the last the second to the last day, we went out to a village. And this man, he has 4 children, and we did the tea ceremony. So there's little chairs that we sat on. I was looking for a picture to show, but it kind of showed people that, I don't post pictures anywhere of my people from my group, so I didn't want to put them, trying to find a picture where everybody looked good. Like 3 looked good and 1 not so much, so I didn't do it. So he's, getting the tea ready and, they pour it up high like that. And they do it everywhere, in little coffee shops and restaurants, hotels. And then he's with his daughter at the end. And we had different teas and things. And that's outside of the place. And on the left, that's where his wife was making bread for us. And that's the oven she was using. And on the right is the kitchen and the dishes. And that was sort of the living room. And that's looking out from very poor kind of area in the village. And then we went to the desert. And we got on a camel. Yeah, it was more like put the tourist on a camel and you go around in a circle kind of. It's almost like little kids on the little horse rides. But it was fun. As somebody says it's touristy, but it's a fun thing. It's very high. The camel kneels down and you get on, and then it goes up, and the guide says, "Hold on for your dear life." And I thought, well, that's not good instructions. That's scary. But then it goes forward and it would pop you off, so you have to hold on. But then you're up quite high. The sky was nice. I mean, it was pretty out there. And on the right, they were doing the henna tattoos for anybody who wanted one. And then they were playing some music. And again, looking out over the campsite. And then they play music for you. And he has a tea set there. I mean, tea's a really big thing over there.
Linda, where were you right here?
This was outside of Marrakesh.
Okay.
We had to go in 4-wheeled vehicles. I mean, most of the time we were on a coach, but and then one day they took us on a horse cart ride. But this was we had to go in cars because there's sort of no roads on part of it. And then inside to the left is where we're having dinner. And you can see we're in a tent, but look at the lighting. And it was beautiful dinner. It was elegant, very nice. And then on the right, there was some entertainment, and that's somebody doing like a fire dance. He's got these torches. And that was sort of at the end. And that's it. There were so many of the pictures just started to look alike. It was the buildings. I mean, that architecture was everywhere and it was gorgeous. So I thought, after like 80 pictures, it's probably more than you need to see. But because it was the same. And but it really, I mean, it was just pretty. Everywhere you looked, it was clean, it was pretty. The people were very warm and very welcoming. I was a little concerned briefly before the trip, because right before the trip we had the earthquake. Then after the earthquake, then it was the uprising and everything, the problems that are in with Israel and Palestine, Hamas. And so it being such a Muslim place and us being Americans who there's some protest against us for being more supportive of Israel. I thought, oh, how's this going to be? You didn't have a sense of that at all. And as far as the country, the king is very sort of moderate about things. And as far as how women dress, women would, if you had 3 daughters, one could dress like we do, absolutely no sign of anything. Then another one could wear just the headgear and maybe sometimes something, longer kind of dress or not, jeans and the head thing. And the third one could wear a burqa. Now, I saw in the time I was there, I don't know if I saw 15 burqas. I mean, because the king said, if you want to wear it, you can. It's not illegal, but you can't buy it. We don't sell them here. You have to make one. We don't sell it because it's not our culture. It's other countries' culture. It's not ours. And so you can, but it's not encouraged. And so, as I said, I didn't see that many people wearing it at all. So that was, it's very open kind of, and very much wanting tourists. So, they're very supportive to that. But as I said, everybody was just, they couldn't have been nicer. And I'm trying to think of anything else, but that's,
How long were you there, Linda?
10 days.
It's so different looking. It's so different, unusual. It was really cool to see your
Yes.
pictures.
And as I said, a lot of the palaces and houses, that were different people, back from, they'll say, oh, that was the 11th century and that was the 7th. And I think, we think we're old, like at 300 years or something, we're having parties. And it's just the sense of history in the different countries. And, when you go through that amount of time, you certainly have the combination from the Arab culture, then the Berber culture, then the French were there and the Spanish was there. So it's a lot of mixtures of things, and you notice it in the food too. As I said, the food was very good, and the seasonings and the spices were there. So it was very enjoyable and great weather. I mean, it's a tiring trip in that you do a lot of walking on uneven areas, and you're in these little historic areas where you're kind of being moved along, but you have to kind of look down because it's going up and down, and it's just not even. And you get stairs. I've never seen so many stairs, and one stair will be 1/4 of an inch and the next stair will be 3 inches high. So there's no conformity. They're all like at different levels. It's like, oh, okay. So you kind of watching. We went to one lunch at a private home in one of these shopping areas, and I think it was 96 stairs to get to lunch. So people were sort of tired at the end of the day, and it was also warm, and we kind of kept moving, but everybody seemed to enjoy it, and we stayed in really nice hotels too, which was very nice. I did they arranged for us if we wanted to do a spa treatment. And so I said, okay, I don't know that maybe we should stop the tape before I tell this one. You can always edit it out. So I go, this is the Four Seasons Hotel. So we go to do the spa treatment, and they say, take everything off and you put on these paper pants. Well, it's a G-string. It's not pants of any sort. It just barely covers. So, okay, very uncomfortable. So I take everything off and I put on my little paper thing, and then I have my robe on and I go in the relaxing section. So I'm sitting there, and some other people from the group were there. So So I was talking, not one of from my group, but just another person from the bigger group. Very nice. And we're chatting. So then two women come and say, come to get us. So I thought when you go to have a massage, they come and they take you to your room. And so they take us into the same room. And it's a square room. And the next thing they take your robe off and they're throwing water on you.
Ugh.
So there you are with just your little paper thing on, and they're throwing the water on you and they're putting lotion all over you. And then you sit on these like benches that are built into the wall, like marble. And they were sitting across from each other, like naked, other than this little thing. So the poor woman on the other side, she reaches down and she takes her towel and let me see if I can show you. All right, and she takes it down and she's slowly pulling it up like this. And the woman goes, no towel, and pulls it away. All I could think of was a Jerry Seinfeld, like no soup, no soup. Or what did so
That's funny.
can you see me or are you seeing the share?
I see you.
See you.
Oh, okay, there it is. So now I'm thinking the poor lady. So then I just said, well, I guess we're going to be really good friends after this. Like we're bonding. So I try to lighten it up because she obviously was very uncomfortable and she's got her hands kind of crossed across her breast. But then they come in and then they put more water, throw more water on you and they put more lotion on you and they say, lay down. So now you're laying on this marble thing, which is not particularly comfortable, sort of, there you are. So you're there for a while and then they come and then they take you into another room, like separate rooms. And then at that point, there's more water and then they put on these gloves and they rub all over you, exfoliating you. And then they put more stuff on you and then you lay down again and then they wash you off and that was it. So then I said to her, afterwards, after I had gotten, well, I did a spa treatment, which I'm glad I booked a regular treatment after that because I'd had to go through all that trouble of getting naked and the little things to have that just water thrown on you. So I said, did you bring us in together because you thought we were friends, because we were together. She goes, oh no, she said, that's how we do it in the village. It's communal. And I said, oh, okay. So at first I thought they just thought we came together, like pals, we come in here and we're talking and they're bringing us, but no, that's, it's communal. But the poor lady, when she ever was slowly kind of lifting her towel up and she goes, no towel, and ripped it out of her hands. And it was like, oh my God, this Jerry Seinfeld movie. No soup, no soup. Yeah.
That's funny.
So that was kind of a fun little thing. But I knew something was up when our guide says it's best just to go with it. When somebody says something to you like that, you know that this isn't going to be like a regular treatment. Something's going to happen. So she was also the one who said, hold on for dear life on the camel. So I came to trust her. So it was a good trip. And I'm exfoliated now, so everything is good.
How many people were on the trip, Linda?
24 altogether.
Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. So Mary Ann,
Can I just say thank you and gorgeous?
Oh, thank you.
It was gorgeous. Oh my God.
yeah.
The
Beautiful.
reason I was up so late last night is because I kept looking at pictures and saying, and then I thought, well, they don't want to see this many pictures. Cause it was like, oh, this one's pretty. But they were all sort of similar. So I thought you need to get a grip and not go on forever too. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mary
Thank you.
Ann, take us to
Thank you.
Cuba.
Okay, all right. Well, let me see what I can do here. All right. That wasn't exactly what I wanted to share.
We can't see anything.
All right. Well, yeah, because I haven't shared it yet.
Oh,
So how do I, well, let me see, but that's,
there you go.
There it is.
okay. Hold on, I want to start with the PowerPoint though. Yeah. Okay. This was obviously a trip to Cuba. And was interesting that the amount of influence that other countries, especially the former Soviet Union, and then more recently the United States, the amount of influence that they've had on Cuba. The former Soviet Union was a major supporter of Cuba, particularly in the economic sense. Now, how did we make this bigger before?
So if you go up to slideshow on the top,
Slideshow?
yep,
Yep.
from the beginning. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. And so in 1991, when the former Soviet Union was dissolved, Cuba was effectively paralyzed. Over 80% of their trade was lost, and living conditions declined remarkably. To recover, Cuba opened to tourists and entered into several joint ventures for hotels, agriculture, and industrial products. Relations with the US have kind of seesawed back and forth between the mid-1990s and the present. In 2012, Cuba received its first shipment of American goods in over 50 years. And in 2014, Barack Obama announced plans to reestablish diplomatic relations with Cuba, and subsequently announced that Cuba would be removed from its list of state sponsors of terrorism, and the U.S. Embassy formally reopened. Well, then in 2017, the Trump administration reversed course on many of Obama's actions. Commerce with most Cuban businesses was prohibited, and Americans were banned from traveling to Cuba individually for educational and cultural exchanges. And basically things continue to worsen. To me, and this is basically as a traveler there, the Trump administration prohibited U.S. travelers from staying at all establishments linked to the Cuban government, which is effectively all commercial hotels. And when Biden was running, he pledged to reverse Trump's policies. Well, that really hasn't happened. I think it sounds like in Congress, there are a number of influential policymakers, e.g. Marco Rubio kind of stands big there in their eyes, and the Cubans really blame him for basically not allowing the Biden administration to reverse a lot of the Trump era. The White House in 2002, the White House announced measures to ease travel restrictions, including expanding flights into Cuba, but restrictions on U.S. travelers staying at commercial hotels remain in place. U.S. dollars are accepted by most, but not all establishments. U.S. credit cards are not accepted, and the U.S. Embassy remains open in Cuba. Conditions there remain challenging. At the beginning of the trip, we were told to expect rolling blackouts, but we didn't experience any. Shortages of food and medicine are common. We stayed at a big hotel in Havana, and for 3 mornings, they had no eggs at breakfast. It was just medicines are also in short supply. Common medicines like aspirin, decongestants, etc., just are not available. And again, at the beginning of the trip, they told us the drinking water was very dear, and to make sure that we didn't throw any drinking water away or anything, but we didn't have any issues. It's estimated, and I found this online, that 88% of Cubans live in, and I put this in quotes because I'm not quite sure what they mean by extreme poverty, but basically they're not rich. Then again, since 1993, private restaurants, polarideros, are allowed, and they tend to be smaller and have better food than government-owned establishments. We ate exclusively in polarideros. In addition to hotels, another sleeping option are casa particulares, and they're almost like Airbnbs. We stayed at one in Pinellas, and I mean, it was I had a room. Everybody had their own room, their own bathroom. There was no maid service basically, but it was fine. It always included breakfast, and if you wanted to eat there, you could, and you would tell your host what it was that you wanted for dinner, and they'd go find the food and make it for you. Playa Hotels, a Spanish chain, looms big there. They have quite a few hotels, and they expect to have 34 hotels in operation by the end of this year's. And there are also a number of Canadian organizations building and operating hotels. But then just kind of interesting tidbits. Abortion has been legal since 1965. It's available, readily available, and costs are covered by the government. In 2002, same-sex marriages became legal and opened the door for couples to adopt. I asked about homelessness in Cuba, and we didn't see any homeless folks, and we're told that it was very low in spite of the high poverty levels. And they said that's because of a high housing subsidies and a cultural tradition of extended family staying in one place. What I found really interesting, and when I show some of the pictures, we'll see this, they have a thriving arts scene, including sculptures and painting and dance. And that I was quite impressed. And they're also starting a biotech industry. They developed COVID vaccines that were 90% effective in preventing severe disease, and they're about to begin clinical trials for a vaccine for dengue fever, which is relatively prevalent in Cuba. So this was a Rhodes Scholar trip, and Rhodes Scholar is one of the few non-academic organizations that still travels to Cuba. There was 17 travelers. There were total, the trip was 12 days, but that included 2 days of travel, so it was 10 days in country. And we went to Havana, and I'll show this map a little bit bigger. The next slide. Havana, Trinidad, Matanzas, and Pinellas, but they're all located in the western part of the country. So this is the same map. So Havana's here, Matanzas is here, and Trinidad and Pinellas aren't shown here, but Trinidad, is around here and Pinellas is over here. And you'll see, for example, that Guantanamo is all the way over on the eastern side. So we just stay really on the eastern, maybe the eastern third of the country. So now I'm going to go to pictures and we'll see how this, I'm going to pause the share, I think. Oh, escape. That's how we get out of this.
Yep.
That'll work.
Well, it's not working. Oh, hold on, because it's paused. No? Cheryl?
I suggest that you click on your, on the slide that's showing
Yep.
and now hit escape.
Ah, okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through these pictures relatively quickly. The first day we got there, we stayed in Havana for just one night. And you hear about all these cars and whatnot in Cuba, and it's really true. It's so these are just some quick shots of, let's see if I can make this a little bigger. And this was another building there in Havana. And I thought these were interesting on the buildings. There's this one and the next one. I'm not sure who this fellow is. The next one is Castro. Fidel.
The first
But
one
I
is
don't know
Che
who-
Guevara.
Che Guevara.
Who is it?
Che Guevara.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't, I tried to see that and couldn't, but. All right, and this is just another car in Havana. I mean, I just thought they were.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
this is Cuba's version of a tuk-tuk. And then these next photos are from Trinidad. No, I'm sorry, this too is Havana, and this was just a statue in the square. Again, these cars are just plain old people's cars. I mean, they're not anything special. They're just what people are driving. Another example.
That's great.
And again, these were some musicians in Trinidad. A square there. And this should have been a video, but I can't make it be a video. So again, music, and they were very good. They played all kinds of music, like very calm music, and then kind of crazy. They were just outstanding. And okay, this is just again in Trinidad, front of the buildings. These people that they look like statues, and I thought they were statues until they started moving. So they stay still, and then they might move very slowly. I mean, it was very interesting. There were a couple different types like this, but I mean, they look like statues. And see if I can make that a little bigger so you can. I mean, they don't totally like statues. Again, this is just an example. Again, in Trinidad, you can see the cobblestone streets and just looking down the, again, just the landscape and the mountains there. Oh, this was at the hotel there. I just thought this was cute. The housekeeper made a thing for my bed. And this was a rainbow. And this was the hotel that we stayed at in Trinidad had a really nice bar up top. And this is maybe not all of our group, but most of our group. They're just enjoying a drink up there.
Marianne, when did you go? Looks like warm weather.
I went end of October, beginning of November. So it was I would say it was mid 80s.
Mhm.
Until the very last day that we were in Havana, and I don't remember why, but it was cold. And I say that because I had brought one dress that I was going to wear to the farewell dinner, but it was a sleeve. I mean, very definitely a summer dress. I said, the heck with it, wore slacks. It was cold. All right, so this is in Matanzas, and this is the next series of photos are from a farm there. And I didn't find the farm so interesting, but the sculptures and whatnot there were just really, really interesting. And Matanzas I found to be the most artistic. So there, and again, let's see if I can make that a little bigger. And there's the Beatles here. And just, I mean, just really, really interesting. Again, another. See if I can make that bigger too. This one, you've got to look at it the right way. He's a guy on this whatever, but so, and I really I found this particularly interesting. And again, another sculpture. More faces there. And this was, again, this was all at that farm. And this was, again, we're still in Matanzas, but along the waterfront there. And we did visit, I'll call it a sculpture. I mean, a lot of it is made out of ironworks and stuff, but these are just some artistic whatever along the street there. And this was in gallery of that shop. It was I can make that bigger. just really again, the art was just, and the symbolism, the things they're trying to depict. This was just obviously a street, but I just thought it was interesting. Again, more art. And this is just, again, still in Matanzas. But just a square there. And again, an old car, and you could see, I mean, it's being used. It's not pretty. It's what they're driving. Just a landscape. More cars. And this was, again, it was a dance performance. Again in Matanzas, and I wish I could get the video to work, but it's not. Again in another car. Oh, and this, no, the video's not working, but this was he's being drawn by a horse. This was where are okay, now this was in Pinellas. And this is just the little shops. This was a tobacco farm. I mean, obviously Cuba is noted for their cigars. And this was a tobacco farm that we saw. And he's the proprietor there. You can see all the leaves here drying. And this was a painting I purchased. And again, to me, to me, it said Cuba. And this was on the way back to Havana. We stopped at a farm and had lunch there too, but it was a real farm to table place. And so you can see a lot of the plants here. And there was a bad hurricane several years ago, and this was pretty much the grounds here, and a lot of their plants were pretty much wiped out, and they managed to rebuild it. So this is just some a little pig there. This was we're in Havana now, and this was an art museum. This is the outside of it. And this, by the way, was the only museum that we went to. And Diana, I don't remember how long ago you went to Cuba. I don't know. I have friends that went like in 2018 or 2019, and they went to a lot of museums, and this was the only one that we went to.
I was there in December 2019, and we had the advantage of staying in the big Hotel Nacional twice.
Yes, that is currently Americans are no longer allowed to.
Yeah, that's why I'm grateful I was able to do that. We
Yeah.
didn't go to too many museums. We went to a lot of art schools, dancing, all the cultural things. And I was disappointed because we were forbidden to go to the Ernest Hemingway Museum, his house. So I guess, they changed things.
Yeah, this was the only one that we went to, and I just took a few pictures. I mean, I thought this was cute. And this was a fort, and there's a moat here around it. And this is that same place, but just a different view. And This was in old Havana now. Again, the streets are. Um, this is a lady who takes care of the cats. This one's actually a better, and she feeds them. I mean, she finds scraps of food and takes care of the cats, and apparently she's there every day.
Where is this, Marianne?
This is in old
In
Havana.
where?
Old Havana. I don't know exactly
Because
where in old.
I think that's the same lady I saw.
Really? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Like I said, they said that she's there all the time. It's interesting because what, 4 years later, and again, this is just another example of a building in old Havana. And this is the big square in then old Havana. And again, this guy looks like he's a statue. Well, he's not. It's kind of like those other guys who pretend they're statues. I'm not sure what this was, but I thought it was interesting. Again, still in that square in old Havana. And this was, it was actually our last night in Havana, our farewell dinner, and this guy came bombing through the door. And I don't know who he was dressed up to be, but it was interesting. And that's it.
Are these people asking for tips? Is that what are they street performers?
I'm sorry?
Are they asking for money when they do
No.
this?
No, no. No. And in fact, I mean, there weren't any beggars and as I said, no homeless, or at least we didn't see any homeless, which surprised me.
Hmm.
Did you have a chance to interact a lot with just the people around?
Yes. Yeah,
Did you
I
find
mean,
them, I found them so friendly.
well, exactly. And all of the shops that we went to, yes, they were very friendly. Very friendly.
Diana, did you do Road Scholar when you went?
I did Road Scholar. I did a slightly different trip. It was a couple nights in Havana. Then we went to Cienfuegos, which is a city developed by the French. So it has a very French feel to it. And to Trinidad, and then back to Havana. So it was only a week trip.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But we
Now,
did go to Bay of Pigs,
did you really?
which is just a beach now. And they said if we just pretended not to be American, we could actually go like dip our toes in the water and swim. But apparently that technically was not allowed.
Oh, interesting. See, I mean, like I said, it was really just the Western Third or thereabouts. But I just found it really, really interesting.
Mhm.
And I'd like to go back on and see different places.
I would
But I
as
don't-
well. And
Yeah.
it was interesting the stuff you did at the beginning, because what I tell people of all my trips, I probably learned more on that one. I mean, the speakers were just outstanding.
Yes.
Obviously, they put a nice spin on everything, but I had no idea of a lot of this. Like, for instance, when Castro was still alive, they decided that they needed to promote more women in the professions. And now
Yep.
I think something like more than half of the doctors and half of the
Yes. Yep.
managers in business are women.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Did you have a speaker there, a woman who was she was well, at least by now she was a retired professor.
Right, and very involved in the women's programs, yes. And then, yeah, it was just, it's a
Yeah.
place that's really close, but really unique. So
Well,
I'd recommend
exactly.
anyone who can go.
Yeah, exactly. And to be truthful, I'm not a fan of r- road scholar trips,
Mhm.
but this was fantastic. It
I
was
love the
fantastic.
cars. I would love the cars, and it's amazing what good condition they seem to be in.
Exactly. Well, some of them, they've been polished and taken care of. And, there was one, I mean, he showed us his engine. It was clean, blah, 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 blah. But
Anything like everybody
there's
else's.
also all of these other cars that are just being used as cars.
Where do they get the parts? That's what I don't understand. Where do they get the parts for those old
I
cars?
don't know. I mean, there might be enough old cars there
Yeah.
that they can kind of, just take them
Um,
from other cars.
Scavenge from the
Yeah.
old, some of the other
Right.
cars.
Yeah, and it's a way
Right.
a lot of them make money. Like we, my group, we got to go like take a tour all around Havana in the old cars.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
what fun.
They just showed up after lunch, a little surprise for us. And we all hopped
nice.
in and just got driven down the boardwalk and the whole thing. It was
Yeah.
a highlight.
Yeah,
Those
Yeah.
cars from the 50s are beautiful.
really. Yep.
They really
There
are.
were a whole bunch of them. There's a place, the first place that Marianne showed with those like metal things on the side of the buildings of
Yeah.
Che Guevara and whatever. That's where the cars hang out, a lot of them.
Right. Yes.
And
Yeah.
when I was there were a whole bunch of them that were hot pink. And I
Yes.
asked our tour guide, I said, what's, is there a symbolism of this hot pink? And he said, no, that's just was the color that was available.
Huh.
Oh, really?
At one point, they
Not
were
because of the
able to get
Barbie
a
movie.
bunch of hot pink paint.
Do people speak English there or probably not?
Um, it varies. Certainly in the hotels and whatnot, they do. But in some of the places, like the shopkeepers that we went to, some of them do, but not all of them. And we did go to like some not nonprofits and whatnot, and they did not speak
Mm,
speak
mhm.
English.
I met people on the street and in the park, because I wandered a bit on my
Yep.
own, who spoke
Yep.
English, because I'm an American. And it was
Yep.
people who wanted to come up and they asked me if I'm an American. And then they would say, my cousin lives there. I'm really looking forward to go visit. They come to,
Oh.
there are so many people who have a connection to someone here and their
Yes.
relatives come down a lot.
Yep.
And I don't know if you also saw all the luggage when you were leaving on the plane. I never saw so many people bring so much luggage, and there's a special provision that allows them to check all these extra bags. And they're Americans who have relatives and they take down things. Somebody brought a TV. They take
Oh,
things
wow.
down to their Cuban relatives. And I was talking to someone in line and and they were American. And,
Yeah.
and I was well, what are you bringing down? They said, we bring down all of these baby clothes
Yep.
and stuff and children's clothes that they get on the cheap wherever it is they get them or for
Okay.
free.
Yep.
And they
Yep.
bring them
Yep.
down, and that's how one of their relatives makes a living, is she has a little shop and she sells them.
Oh, interesting. Talking about the medical supplies and whatnot, and the fact that a lot of them are really scarce. Our guide suggested that when we got home, that we send her like care packages and she'd take them down there. So I put it together. I went to the dollar store and bought a bunch of aspirin and bandages and decongestants and all that stuff and put it in a box and sent it. I mean, she's in Florida, so she'll just take it down to Cuba. But
So you had to, my son went there and he had some issue about the money. You have to only deal in cash. Is that right?
they don't take US credit cards. And at the first at the big hotel, we could have bought some kind of card or something, and I'm not quite sure how it worked. but I just kept US dollars, and there was only one place that we went. It was roadside stand. Oh, well, no, that's not true. It was a store at a rest stop, and they did not take US dollars, but just about every place else.
Hmm.
You know, it was.
Mm.
It was very. Again, I would highly recommend it. It's. I mean, it's done. And I said it's so close geographically, but so far, just
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank
are we
you.
allowed, are Americans allowed to travel to Cuba directly? You don't have to like go through a third country anymore. You
Yes,
can go there
no,
direct.
well,
No.
going through a third
No.
country is illegal. Cause
Yes.
it's our citizenship, not where we come from, that gets us in trouble. You can go, but technically you have to go with like an educational purpose.
Oh, okay.
And like they told us, even though I was on a
Yeah.
tour, they said, not that we expect this to ever happen, but hold on to your guidebook, your itinerary.
Yep.
They said at least 5 years, because at some point, if you're ever challenged as to what did you really do when you were in Cuba, you can
Mhm.
show that you weren't there lying on the beach. In fact, that's why they said they weren't even supposed to take us to the beach, because you're not
Yeah.
supposed to go there for vacation. You're only supposed to go there for cultural or educational or
But when
philanthropic.
Right,
Obama,
and
when
we wouldn't
Obama
ta-
normalized, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marianne.
I was trying to say they gave us was a 2-page sheet, and every day we were supposed to make notes about what we did that day, and
Hmm.
keep that for 5 years.
You're right, Sue, though. There was
When
a time when you could
Yeah,
go.
yeah, because like my brother and
Yeah.
sister-in-law went when
Right.
Obama was president, and it was more normal. And I
Yeah.
think there was there was cruises
Oh,
and
Cruise.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I
and
yes,
wanted
people
to
went
do.
to the beach and all of
Yes.
that. So
Yep.
that didn't last very long.
No,
No.
it didn't.
So why
It
didn't
didn't.
why doesn't it go back? Why didn't Biden put it back?
Well,
Does anybody know?
to be truthful, one of the speakers that we had, and he'd spent several years in the U.S. representing Cuba and in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, he's been around. He blamed Marco Rubio,
Yeah.
basically
Yes.
saying that Florida is purple. I'm not sure it's purple anymore,
No,
but
it
that's a
isn't.
different
It's
issue.
red.
And they didn't want to offend anybody in Florida. I mean, that was his thinking. Now, I don't know if
Mhm.
that's,
Could be.
Yeah, I think it's the legacy of the revolution where people lost their big estates or farms, and then they came to the
Right.
US. They hated Cuba ever since then.
yeah,
Get over it.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a question. Sounds kind of funny, but you said it was warm, and I was curious what the air conditioning was like in the places that you went, the hotels and restaurants.
It was fine. It was fine. There was one hotel, and I don't remember if it was, I want to say it was Matanzas. Air conditioning was fine, but got up, and we stayed at each place for 2 nights. Okay. So the first morning went to take a shower, no water. And so we went down and told them, they knew, and it was fixed within half an hour. Next morning, there was no water. Well, that time they couldn't fix it. They wound up bringing us like 2-liter things of water so we could wash up.
When
But
you had water, did you get hot water?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, the accommodations, other than that big hotel in Havana, which is almost brand new, the accommodations were modest, but fine.
So does
Yeah.
anybody have any more questions? I think we're probably a little past
Yeah.
time, and I know Cheryl needs to hop off, but I just,
Ew. I hate to cut it off. It's such a, I mean, you guys seem to be
Very
enjoying.
interesting, very interesting.
But
Very
I have
good
to go.
presentations, both.
I don't know.